Welcome back to 50 for 50 as Mike and I go through 50 albums to celebrate our soon to be 50 years
We're
on
we're
this
in the home
earth.
stretch.
We are absolutely in the
Not
home stretch.
not in the podcast home stretch. I don't even know if we're halfway yet, but
No, we won't be halfway for a little bit.
okay, but we're definitely in the birthday home stretch.
Yeah. You know what? We should probably figure out the weekend of our birthday to just do something non-album related just to kind of talk about stuff. We'll figure it out. But
Yeah, we'll figure it out. We have a little bit of time.
yeah, we do. So we're talking about Mary J. Blige, 1992. What's the 411? And as you know, I like to listen to the albums as many of them as I can get through before we record.
Right.
Mary got a lot of albums,
Mary has a lot of albums. I was actually wondering how you were going to be able to get through every single one of her records.
I didn't get close, by the way. So I'm just gonna. I don't even know if people realize how many albums she has. So
Mm,
what's the 411 1992, her debut album? That's when we're gonna talk about. There's a remix album to What's the 411 that
hmm
comes out the following year. Then in 94, My Life. 97, Share My World. 99, Mary. 2001, No More Drama. 2003, Love and Life. 2005, The Breakthrough. 2007, Growing Pains. 2009, Stronger with Each Tear. I would say at The Breakthrough, I would lose any sort of bet for $1 million if I could name the rest of her albums. I would have lost.
Oh, I might be able to take care of that for you.
Okay, so
Um,
after The Breakthroughs, Growing Pains, then what is
right.
after Growing Pains?
After Growing Pains, I think is My Life 2.
Stronger with Each
Stronger
Tear.
with Each Tear, then My Life
Then
2.
My Life 2. You got that
Right.
one.
Um,
Then
oh
she
crap.
actually takes quite a long break as far as a solo album is concerned.
Then London Sessions.
London. So there's Think Like a Man
Oh,
2,
the soundtrack, right.
which is credited to her
To
as a
her, right.
solo album or a soundtrack album or whatever. Then the
She's
London Sessions, like you
been
said.
right. There might be a Christmas album in there too.
Yeah, I remember the Christmas album, but it's not listed on iTunes as part of her entire discography.
Okay. Then
Um,
then there's probably Good Morning Gorgeous.
Good Morning Gorgeous is after Strength of a Woman.
Strength of a Woman. Right.
Then Good Morning Gorgeous, and then just 2024 Gratitude.
Gratitude. Yeah. And I think she has an album scheduled to come out this year.
My goodness, this woman
She
works.
is a busy woman.
So the one thing that I realized, and I was kind of thinking about this when we did the Alicia Keys 50 for 50. Now, Alicia, when Alicia comes out, it's not like we were in high school. We were already, it was already in the 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
But when Mary comes out, we are in high school.
Yes.
And so for some reason, that makes me feel a little bit closer, even though Mary's older than us, that makes me feel closer to kind of like, the Mary time frame than the Alicia Keys time frame. And what I realized is we kind of grew up with so many different versions of Mary. Because
That is very true.
when Mary debuts, she's like the young swagger hip hop R&B, like the way that they dress her, and we'll talk a little bit about the person who kind of is in charge of that of her
Right.
career early on. And there's a look, there's a style, and she just seems like cool, like she's kind of it. And then as she grows, she becomes popular. She becomes a little bit more mainstream. So then her look and her sound changes. And then she kind of at some point just becomes like Auntie Mary. And I don't know what we would even consider her now. I imagine, I don't know if like what her personal life is like, but she's like, she could have grandbabies if she, of that age.
Sure.
So like, for us having seen sort of the whole transition through life of an artist, especially from the female side, she seems like the person that I guess I'm closely connected to when it comes to that point. Like, I don't even see Mariah in that same lane because I think Mariah has tried to kind of always be, I guess, a little slightly older version of the Mariah that she was in the beginning, whereas Mary, I feel like, has transitioned with her age
Yeah,
a
I
little bit
mean,
more.
there's maybe been a little bit more evolution, right? I mean, when Mary came out, Mary was the first female artist to really be like, she was an R&B singer, but she had hip hop swag. Like before that, all of the female R&B singers that were out kind of had either like the evening gown kind of, that sort of like quote unquote classy vibe, or they were Janet, or
Mhm.
operating kind of in that like Janet lane. But Mary was really the first woman artist that came out and had that like ghetto swag, that came out and was like, I'm definitely of the hip hop generation. Like I can rap too, but I also studied Shaka Khan and Patti LaBelle and Aretha, and I'm from the lineage of those singers.
And it sounds like when Andre Harrell did finally find her and get to do something with her, he was like, "I don't really know what to do. Like, she's
Yeah,
not anybody like I know how to promote or how to market or how to style." And
she
that's
broke
where
she broke the mold. Like there was nobody like her before.
that's where Sean Puffy Combs comes in.
Right, right.
And let's just get this out of the way because I don't really want to talk about him too much, but I did a search because I was kind of interested in how she has talked about him over the years. Because I think early on, and we've always had Puffy being in the news for the wrong reasons throughout like his entire career, but a lot of it was kind of smallish and some of it was temper related, like he's cracking people in the head with stuff and he's just fighting. And then it obviously gets to where it is today. And she kind of was always like, got his back, got his back, got his back. And then it sounds like she can't really have his back anymore, and she's pulled her comments back, but not in a way of like dismissing him, but just in a way of like, this is kind of where I am right now kind of way.
Yeah. I mean, it's been like respectful distance, right? Like what can she say? Um, when I really noticed that is when she got inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which I believe was the year before last, and she didn't mention him once. And I was like, okay, like that is clearly a conscious decision, because what's in the world is that there wouldn't be a Mary J. Blige if it wasn't for Sean Combs. So to leave him out feels like a deliberate omission. And I know that he helped make the first two albums and then kind of backed off and then resurfaced, and they made an album together that wasn't received well, and apparently the making of it wasn't great. But they've been on the periphery of each other for a really long time. So for him to not even be like mentioned like sideways anymore feels like a deliberate omission, and who knows why she's making those decisions. Like I would certainly want to be as far away from anything related to that man as possible. But the reality is that he is definitely a very influential part of, at least in the early days, like the start of her story.
And if you are from a PR perspective, if you're like helping her out, you would probably say at your own Rock and Roll Hall of Fame ceremony, don't mention him because whatever you say is going to take precedence over your moment.
Yeah, that is true. That is very true.
Okay, so before we get to the year of 1992, I was interested in like, what is your order of Mary's best albums?
Oh man, you should have let me prepare for that.
I mean, it's just it's off the top. Like I
Yeah,
was just interested because as I was listening back to them, the first few albums are the most memorable.
yeah. I mean, My Life is my favorite Mary J. Blige album. I think it's everybody's favorite Mary J. Blige album. I lived with that album, and I remember like sort of end of '94, beginning of '95, just at night I'd get home from work and just play My Life and Crazy Sexy Cool on a loop, like over and
Mm.
over and over and over and over again. I lived with those albums in a way that I don't really live with music anymore. But My Life still holds up, still sounds great. Fantastic record. I don't know that Mary has ever actually made a bad album, maybe up until that last one, Gratitude. I tried to listen back to some of that and I was like, too much auto tune, which, she's an amazing singer. She doesn't need auto tune. It just felt like she was maybe trying a little bit too hard and got away from what makes her so great. But I think there's spots in all of her albums that are really good.
So my life, when I was going back through my listens, the one on Apple that I could find, it was frustrating to go through because it was a commentary version. So there would be a track, and then she'd talk about it, and then there'd be a track, and then she'd talk about it. Then there'd be an interlude, then she'd talk about it. And I'm like, I just want to listen to the music.
There's not
So,
a non-commentary version of that
I
album?
mean, if I search, but I was just going through her page on Apple Music and then going through all the albums that way, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is so hard to listen to." All right, so let's talk about the year that was 1992. So many things happened in 1992 on this list. Let's start in January 11th, 1992. Nirvana's Nevermind goes to number 1 in the US Billboard Top 200, establishing the widespread popularity of the grunge movement of the 1990s.
Yep.
And we talked about this when we recorded our Arsenio Hall review of his book. February 5th, New Kids on the Block interrupt their tour to perform on the Arsenio Hall show in response to rumors that the group lip syncs its concerts.
Which, I mean, yeah, I mean, whatever. I mean, I'm certain, you know what? It probably, they're lip syncing to their own vocals, obviously, but you can make more of a case that they lip sync now than you were able to make a case that they lip sync back then.
Yeah. And, we also talked about it in that episode with on Arsenio, which is the power of Arsenio when it came to this music. Like,
And this audience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Okay. February 24th, Nirvana's Kurt Cobain marries Hole's Courtney Love.
It's a big moment, and for whatever people say about that marriage, like, it appeared to be a union of two relatively toxic human beings. And unfortunately, I mean, maybe not because of the marriage, but unfortunately, Kurt, didn't live much longer after that. He was only around for about another 2 years.
Yeah. And well, this is not the last of them. We'll have one
Oh,
more.
there's more.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Okay. February 25th, 6 major record companies reach an agreement to phase out the long box form of compact disc packaging in 1993, by April of 1993, due to the complaints that the packaging is environmentally wasteful.
Yeah.
Not only wasteful, but kind of a pain in the ass to open.
Pain in the ass to open, a pain in the ass for stores to stock. Like, it was just really weird. So if you are listening or watching this and you are younger than 40, CDs used to be packaged in this in this rectangular box, which was like 40% CD and 60% just like cardboard. So it was super wasteful. You bring the CD home and then have to like unwrap this package, throw most of it away. Or, like my relatives would buy CDs and I would use the cardboard to like do art shit. But it was super, super wasteful. And, I'm glad that there was a movement away from that.
What was the reason for it?
Who the hell knows? I don't know.
Because the compact disc in of itself was small. It was just a plastic casing around the compact disc.
Yeah.
But in order to get to that, you had this like cardboard.
Like take this whole like thing. And I don't know if the reason they did it that way is so that CDs could fit in like record bins, or maybe it was like a security, like loss prevention type. I don't know why they did it, but it was super wasteful.
Yeah. Okay. The 34th annual Grammys, also on the 25th, are presented in New York, hosted by Whoopi Goldberg. Natalie Cole's Unforgettable with Love wins Album of the Year, while her virtual duet cover of Unforgettable with her late father, Nat King Cole, wins both Record and Song of the Year. Mark Cohn wins Best New Artist.
So much great music in 1991, and we get Natalie Cole and Mark Cohen. And just for the record, the best new artist nominees that year were Boyz II Men, CNC Music Factory, Color Me Bad, Seal, and Mark Cohen. And Mark Cohen won, which I think tells you all you need to know.
March 10th at the 92 Soul Train Music Awards, Prince wins the Heritage Award for Lifetime Achievement. March 16th, Mariah Carey performs at MTV Unplugged, shows critics her 5-octave range, and gets rave reviews. And from what I remember, that's where she does I'll Be There, right?
I'll Be There. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, Mariah, people had given Mariah crap early on because she didn't tour behind her first 2 records. So this was really, for a lot of people, the first chance they got to see her in a live setting. And that Unplugged album is actually pretty good. Like,
yeah.
I still play it from time to time. Like, it's a good album.
What's my man's name who was on that song with her?
Trey Lorenz.
Yeah, there we go.
Who I think is still occasionally singing background for Mariah.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
That's awesome. April 20th, the Freddie Mercury tribute concert takes place at Wembley Stadium in London. All proceeds go to AIDS research.
Great show from what I remember. George Michael, David Bowie, Guns N' Roses, Elton John, like so many great performers, so many great performances. I think that show aired on like regular TV after a while. It was on like Fox or something like that. So I got to see pieces of it.
And on April 24th, David Bowie married fashion model Iman.
That was like after Lenny and Lisa, that's like the second 2 very, very attractive human beings who have no business being together getting married to one another.
May 6th, Selena releases her album Entre a mi Mundo, which contains her first #1 hit, Como la Flor. June 27th, Michael Jackson starts the Dangerous World Tour, supporting his Dangerous album in Munich, Germany. July 11th, November Rain by Guns N' Roses enters the world record books when it becomes the longest single at almost 9 minutes to reach the U.S. top 20. The single's video has a budget of over $1.5 million, becoming the most expensive at the time.
Then
what do you remember about that song?
I mean, it's a good song. I got to see Guns N' Roses live in 2019, and they were very good. But I mean, November Rain is just one of those like epic ballads, like memorable video, great song. But yeah, 9 minutes, and radio didn't always do the radio edit piece. Like sometimes they played the full 9 minutes of that junk.
July 18th, Whitney marries Bobby. July 27th, Ice-T announces that Cop Killer is being pulled from Body Count's self-titled album.
Yep. I did this was the summer before my senior year in high school. And I remember for one of my classes doing a presentation on Cop Killer and playing it, I had bought a bootleg cassette of the Body Count album and played it for my classmates, and they were horrified. But I also got an A on the paper. So thanks, Ice-T.
There you go. August 18th, Frances Bean Cobain, daughter of Kurt and Courtney, is born. So there you go. That's the 3. We got 3 of them.
A lot of Kurt, a lot of Nirvana.
October 3rd, Sinead O'Connor stirs up controversy when she rips up a picture of the Pope on Saturday Night Live. Very memorable moment of Saturday Night Live.
Yes, indeed.
October 31st, End of the Road by Boyz II Men posts a 12th consecutive week at #1 in the U.S. charts, ending a 36-year-old record previously held by Elvis Presley. It would be broken the next year by Whitney Houston.
And we should do a Boys to Men episode. I don't know if we have that like locked in or not.
Yeah, we got to figure out something about them.
Yeah. Yeah. And Whitney for that matter.
There's still a possibility that we will do a non popular Whitney album, I guess we could say.
Yeah.
It's still a possibility.
Yeah.
We're trying to put it together. Jackson's American Dream, a 2-part miniseries based on the Jackson family premieres on ABC. When we did our review of the Michael movie, we talked a little bit about this.
Joseph, you a liar and a cheater, and I don't want you no more.
Michael, Marlon, gonna get a beating.
Oh God. Oh man.
November 17. The soundtrack of The Bodyguard is released. The album went on to be certified 18 times platinum and sell 45 million copies worldwide.
A lot of people own that soundtrack album. I was never one of those people.
I don't think I had it either. Maybe my sister had it, but I don't remember having it.
I had I like made a cassette copy off of some, like, you couldn't avoid the Bodyguard soundtrack, but I was like, I don't know if I like this soundtrack enough to pay $10 for it. So, I was balling on a budget.
There's some other fun Whitney songs on that album, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you seen the movie?
Yes.
I watched the movie like for the first time maybe like 3 years ago.
Oh, wow. What did you think?
Yeah. It's a little long, unnecessarily long. Whitney's not the greatest actress, which I don't think we should have expected that, considering she was a performer, like, the story of Bill Cosby wanting her to be Sandra in the Cosby Show.
Cosby Show, right.
And the weirdest thing about this movie, and this just tells you about Hollywood in the 90s, there should have been a sex scene that kind of got stopped at some point. And what's funny about that is, like, to me, when I was watching kind of how they were being positioned, like Kevin Costner, giant movie star, of course. Whitney Houston, giant pop star. And as I was watching that scene, I was like, in the back of my head, Whitney's actually the one, like, at the higher level than Kevin in my mind. And so I'm like, should she sleep with this dude? Like, I was doing like the who's got the most power in this moment kind of thing.
Right. And that's a really interesting thing, I think, for a couple of reasons. I mean, one, we're talking about Mary J. Blige, and Mary J. Blige is an Oscar-nominated actress, which is not something that you would have expected at the time that The Bodyguard, was a hit, and we were thinking of Mary as just like new upcoming singer, and Whitney was the singer who was trying to become an actress. But, and again, I think we'll talk more in depth about Whitney at a later date. But I think, for that love scene, it was like, Kevin Costner's fans, some of whom would have been weirded out seeing him do a sex scene with a black woman. Whitney's fans, some of whom might be disappointed in seeing her have a sex scene with a white man. You got to like play the middle on that in a weird way. I've read Bobby's biography, and I don't know that he was too crazy about the idea of his woman having a love scene with anybody. So, it was just, all kinds of mess.
Yeah, it was almost like Whitney's kind of like royalty, and you can't touch royalty, man. Like, even though you're Crash Davis from Bull Durham, still you're not at that level in my mind. But it's kind of funny that we had different, different sides looking at it in different ways.
Yeah.
All right. And then this is interesting because I did not realize this. This goes back to 1992. There's no date on this, but according to the information I pulled, in the year of 1992, the MP3 file format is developed as part of a video compression standard. All the way back to 92, man.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think I had a computer in 92.
I did not. I definitely did not. I don't think I owned my own computer until like 98 or 99.
All right, so back to Mary. Who was she before we saw her in 1992? So Mary was born in the Bronx in 1971, spent her formative years in the, you're going to have to help me with this pronunciation, Schlobohm projects
Let's
in
go with
Yonkers.
that. I think it was Schlobaum.
Okay. The nickname supposedly is people would just call it the Slow Bomb. Her father, jazz musician and Vietnam War vet, suffered from PTSD, left the family when she was young. Her mom was a nurse, and her sister was a single parent. And I guess this kind of like, as far as Mary's perspective on war and such, because of what she witnessed, it wasn't something, just where she grew up and stuff. It really affected her, I guess, and she had this like survivalist mentality for her early life. What do you know about Mary's early life?
I mean, other than just, sort of reading through interviews and hearing her talk about what she experienced, like Mary would be in a different world, Mary would be the perfect person to write a memoir.
Mhm.
I think she would share up until a point. I don't know how deep she would get if she was to write something now. Um, but she came out with this like hard shell. And I think we know like little bits and pieces of where that hard shell came from. I mean,
Mhm.
to be a woman growing up in the hood, all this stuff, you kind of have, that hard shell is kind of intrinsic within you. But hearing about her family life, and she's still very close to like, her and her sister have been like rocking like this from like day one. Latanya Blige is everywhere Mary J. Blige is.
Mhm.
So those family ties are tight, but I would love to hear, you know have somebody catch Mary in a moment during an interview when she maybe doesn't have her guard up and she's totally relaxed, and
Mhm.
hear her talk about her life. I think would be really interesting.
So how is she found? As my research says, she was at the mall and she spent a few dollars at the record your own tape kiosk, and she sang a cover of Anita Baker's Caught Up in the Rapture. Her mother's boyfriend showed the tape to Jeff Red, a rising artist on Uptown. Red was so floored, he gave it to Andre Harrell, the CEO at the time of Uptown. And then he signed her in 1989. Nobody knew her. Nobody had heard of her coming in.
Hmm.
And it was like, what do I do with this woman? Like, she is untrained and she's not pop necessarily. So how do we sell her? And that's where Sean Puffy Combs comes into play. He realized that instead of putting her in a gown, that they should lean into kind of her street sense and her reality, and perfect kind of person to kind of bridge this R&B and hip hop movement from a young songstress.
Yeah.
Very smart, by the way. I mean, if you have to
Yeah.
give it, we can give him credit for that, even if he's
Yeah. I
not
mean,
a good person.
all the other bullshit aside, right? Like Puffy in that respect was a visionary. Um, like I said, back in those days, if you were a female singer, you were either going to be Anita Baker or you're going to be like Janet Jackson or Paula Abdul, or like, those were the two lanes you went in. And Mary opened up a completely different lane. And I think some of that was due to like the imagery that Puffy kind of you know that he was able to ideate on and kind of create for her.
So at this point, the where we first hear her is on Father MC's album, right? Is
Indeed.
that where you
Yeah.
would have,
Yeah.
and I don't even know if I put two and two together until after What's the 411 came out, that was the same person.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you didn't know. It's crazy to me to think of Father MC like his first two singles, the background vocalists were Jodeci and Mary J. Blige, who both lapped him fairly quickly.
Yes.
Wonder how he feels about that.
And you know what's funny is, like, he was trying to be like a budget version of Big Daddy Kane.
I was thinking the same
Off.
thing. Yeah. I mean, he was like, he was definitely like the love man
Yeah.
rapper. Like, um, and like it worked for a minute. He had a couple of hits, like he was reasonably popular. But Jodeci and Mary went on to become legends, and Father MC kind of got left in the dust a little bit.
And then, like you said, and I'm glad you mentioned the Jodeci piece, because Mary and Casey Haley hook up and become a couple, and then there's crazy fallout of that relationship. But on What's the 411, the intro track is like a bunch of people calling her on her voicemail, and Casey is on that voicemail. And if you didn't know about their relationship, his message is essentially like, "Hey Mary, where you at? Pick up the phone." But then when you know what happened in their relationship, the "Hey Mary, where you at? Pick up the phone" kind of sounds aggressive a little bit.
A little bit.
And
I never thought
so
of that.
I was listening to it going like, "Oh man, like, am I supposed to? I'm not supposed to take this as being aggressive, but I'm taking this as being aggressive."
Right. Well, knowing what you know in retrospect, yeah, I can see how
Right.
you would come to that.
Has she really talked about this relationship anywhere?
It's been a really, really long time. I think, I think they were fairly open about dating each other as it was happening. And
Mhm.
then kind of in the aftermath of that, there was some stuff. And then like on the Mary album, after they had broken up, they made a record together.
Yes, which was so confusing.
Yeah. Yeah. But then I think they very much, Mary decided to go in a different direction and she kind of left that behind. And I would say up until that point, Mary and KC were maybe on like the same level success wise. And
Mhm.
then like after 2000, Mary like moved up and Jodeci became kind of a nostalgia act, and they just are on very separate sides of the coin now.
So we went through the discography, and I was actually interested to see like what albums sold much better than others. And up until the 2010s or whatever, the sales information isn't as strong as it was pre. But what's 411, at least the numbers I have, it has her at 3.5 million for US sales. My Life and Share My World both at 3. Mary drops a little bit, but No More Drama comes back with 3.2. And then even The Breakthrough, after Love and Life, it was her lowest selling album at that point. The Breakthrough comes back to over 3 million. So she kind of had this interesting, like,
A little up and down.
yeah, and then
Yeah.
come back up, and then who knows as far as the record counting of today. But I thought that was pretty interesting. Like, she doesn't have that one album that sold so much more than the rest, which says that she had some good consistency. People knew, hey, when Mary comes out, it's probably going to be worthy, which goes back to what you said about her not really having a bad album.
Yeah. I mean, Mary's fans are incredibly loyal. Um, and she built part of the reason she built up that loyalty is just that the quality of her records was super consistent from one album to the next. So you knew that if a Mary album came out, her fan, like she had a dedicated fan base that was going to come out and buy it no matter what. And then, some albums kind of appeal to just the core fan base. And then, you might get a hit off of one of the albums, like, when Family Affair came out and, pop fans were like, oh shit, Mary J. Blige. And then I think there was, some extra added sales on top of that.
The album produced by Dave Jam Hall, Devontae Swing of Jodeci. I just recently watched Blackish, the episode where Andre wants to name the last child Devontae.
Devontae, yeah.
It's so good. It's so good. And as we were watching it, because I've never seen I'd seen episodes of Blackish, but I'd never watched it all the way through. So now I'm
Mm,
watching it all the way through. I think we're in like season 3 or season 4. Like Trump just got elected. Um, and so watching it, it's so like some of the stuff is like if you were around at a certain time and place, like exactly where the episode is going. But if you weren't,
mm.
like it's kind of new. And so a lot of this stuff, I'm like, okay, I already know where this is going just because of my knowledge. And that was one of those episodes because I was like, wait, like this third most important person of Jodeci, that's who you want to name your child
I mean,
after?
look, Devontae is the one who wrote all the music and kind of like produced the record. So
Look,
I would argue Devontae might have been, I mean, at the very least, the second most important
well,
member of
okay,
Jodeci.
I should say the third most well known.
Known, sure,
Yeah.
sure,
And
sure.
then, you know, if he wanted to name his baby, Mr. Dalvin,
Mr. Dalvin, oh
that
god.
would've been bad. But, like, just stuff like that, and then you start thinking about things, and I was like, "Oh," and so we wanted to do a YouTube short, but let's actually do this here. I think it actually works well in this format, 'cause I asked her, I said, "Hey, 90s boy band or 90s R&B groups,
Uh-huh.
like, how would you rank them? Obviously, I think Boys to Men comes up on everybody's list just because they were so popular with those first 2 albums. But ho where would you put everybody else in your top 5 list?
I mean, I yeah, Boys to Men is probably number one. I mean, Boys to Men and Jodeci are probably number one and number two. Um, Drew Hill, probably number three. Just because I think they had like a pretty consistent consistent discography. Are we doing boy groups and girl groups? Or are we doing just like
No, I think girl groups fit.
sure? So it would be Boys to Men, Jodeci, Drew Hill, SWV. Um, I'm tempted to put TLC number five, but Chili, I'm not on Team TLC right now, so we're gonna have to take TLC off the list. Can't include New Edition because you know they only made one album in the '90s.
Yeah,
Um,
I think of them more as an '80s act for
yeah,
sure.
maybe Blackstreet.
Blackstreet's interesting
Yeah,
because there's so many memorable groups from back then,
dude, so
but
many.
like, I think of someone like Shy.
Right.
Like, for classic songs, like, Shy has, like, 2 or 3 songs that could hold up with anybody's
Yeah, I mean
song
that
from
first
that
Shy
time
album
frame.
is dope.
Yeah.
Shy or Silk or High
Mint
Five.
mint condition.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of, and to be fair, Mint Condition was more of like a band and less
yeah,
like
for
a
sure.
singing group. But I mean, it's kind of like Boys to Men, Jodeci, or Jodeci Boys to Men, depending on which way you want to look at it. And then kind of like Drew Hill, In Vogue, even although I can't even really say there's an In Vogue album that I like all the way through.
Mhm.
Um, same thing with like High Five, greatest hits album, perfect. But I'm not bumping a High Five album. And then you got, Silk, Shy, Intro, um, Calling Me Bad, just like a very long list of like groups that came out kind of, Boyz II Men and Color Me Bad were the first, and Jodeci. Like they all three came out at around the same time, and then there was just a rush of groups that came out after them.
In the mid-90s, if you'd asked me this question, I would've said Jodeci 1, Boyz II Men 2,
Mhm.
because Jodeci was just cooler. Like, Boyz II Men was
I mean, Boyz II Men was corny.
pretty corny.
Yeah,
But then, there's something about Boyz II Men's ability to, stay, uh, in, you know, in the music. They were continued to make albums, and Jodeci
right,
would kind of fall off, and then it just became Casey and JoJo, and that's how
right.
they marketed each other. And so, I think Boyz II Men is the right number one answer. But I think it's kind of interesting to think back, in 1993, um, I would have thought that Jodeci would be the bigger group, but obviously they were not.
White people
in all
were scared
syndrome.
of Jodeci.
Yeah. I just remember them being on the Martin Lawrence show when they did that, and Martin comes out singing, like, and I was like, "These guys are, like, on a television show that, that is, very popular. This is kind of insane."
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
Jodeci was definitely like the hood favorite. For some reason, this has to have been like Def Comedy Jam. One of those comedy shows they were talking about Jodeci, and they bring up KC, and they start singing Forever My Lady, and the way they sing it is, I'm gonna see if I remember this. I could embarrass myself. So I look like a gremlin, and it
oh,
means so
man.
much to me. I don't go near water because I multiply by 3.
Oh, man.
It's
He's so
hilarious.
mean.
Yeah, hilarious.
And then there's the Forever Shanae,
Forever Shanae, that's right.
like, that became kind of a big thing. So I just always assumed I was like, Jodeci's gonna be around forever, and then they were not, absolutely not.
I
Though they're
mean,
still out there. They're
they're
still
still
out
out
there.
there. I saw them on tour 2 years ago, 3 years ago. They did a show. It was Jodeci, SWV, and Drew Hill. And Jodeci was the headliner. And KC still got it. KC can sing his butt off. I think JoJo was lip syncing his parts.
Mm.
Because they both had some pretty severe health issues. But KC brought it. And even like SWV they were fantastic. And even Drew Hill, there was like 8 dudes out there saying they was Drew Hill, but it was still good. Cisco is still doing cartwheels.
Oh, man. Did he do Thong Song?
He did Thong Song.
Of course, he had to.
Yep.
That's hilarious. When I went to see New Edition the last time, where I had those really, really good front row seats,
Mm.
Jodeci was on the thing, and I thought that they were gonna be right before New Edition, and they opened, so I missed them.
Oh, who
Uncle
was between
Charlie was
Jodeci?
like this is like Uncle Charlie, I think.
Okay, all right.
And I was like, "All right, Uncle Charlie's fine, but I would have rather seen
Let's see
Jodeci." So,
Jodeci.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's get back to this. So, the album, What's the 411? The title. Now, I don't know. This is our internet research here. I don't know that I've ever heard this story. Maybe you have, but the title came from Mary's brief stint as a directory assistance operator. It was her way of saying she had the info on what was real.
I mean, 411 was the information number. It might still
Yeah.
be. I'm not sure. Can
Can you actually call that number still, you think?
I don't know. I don't know.
I mean,
If
if there was an active 411 line, I would answer the phone and go, "Hello," and they would ask me a question, and I would say, "Google it," and hang up.
Seriously.
So supposedly, Mary had a little bit of like, I don't know if it was what we would currently call imposter syndrome, but the idea of her being famous like all of a sudden was pretty hard for her, it sounds like. She talks about the album is kind of like her own survival kit, and she liked the idea of it giving a voice to the young girls who didn't see themselves in like that version of R&B that Andre Harrell was like, "This is the R&B that I know."
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Mary, Mary has been very open about the struggles that she faced, not just growing up in the early days of her career. She just did an interview, and I wish I remember what the series is called, but there's this dude, he used to host Access Hollywood,
Mm.
Scott something or other. I want to say it's Scott Brown. I might not be right there, but he does this series where like he invites artists over to his house, and they do like a long interview. Like he did an episode with Regina King. He did one with Kamala Harris. He's done like various people, and the most recent one at the time of us recording this was with Mary. And she spoke honestly about how like in her early days she was a terror. And I think some of it, like it's like gonna play like amateur psychologist here. Some of it is insecurity. Like I'm from the projects. I'm operating in this world where like people are like super happy to meet me, and are where I have like some pull and some power, and some of it is the entitlement that comes with being a famous person, being a celebrity. And when
Mhm.
you put that insecurity and that entitlement together, like it just you know it can create this very weird thing. So Toure, who I fucking hate, did did this, and like he has this web series now. And I think even he talks about Mary J. Blige in her early days just being like, you know, the way you hear about artists like Nicki and some of the younger art. I mean, Nicki's not young. The way you hear about some younger artists now being terrors like Mary J. was that back then.
Mm, interesting. So the reception of the album, I remember when this album came out, a lot of people in certain places that you wouldn't expect to like it, I think they liked it.
Okay.
Um, Rolling Stone, uh, liked it, praised the gritty undertone and realism of the album. Entertainment Weekly highlighted her powerful, soulful voice. What do you remember about the critical reception at that time of this album?
I mean, I don't know that I remember much about the critical reception. I don't know that I was necessarily reading record reviews very much around that time. Um, I mean, look, I was living in Brooklyn. I was a senior in high school when this album was popular, and like in the hood, everybody was messing with Mary. Like in New York City, like Mary J. Blige was kind of like the queen from Jump. Like you couldn't walk out your house and not hear like real love coming out of a car or something like that. So I think Mary always kind of had New York City on lock. Um, and I think because there had not been anybody like her previously, I think she was interesting to a lot of critics. Again, just because there was no like, what was the precedent before Mary? TLC was maybe the closest thing we had, and that was a couple of months before Mary came out. So,
Mhm.
it
But
was
there
something.
was still a difference. There was
Yeah,
still a
a huge
major
difference.
difference.
A huge difference. So yeah, man. I mean, I think it was just so unique and so novel that people were just like, "Holy crap, what is this?"
I just remember thinking that I I was trying to figure out because it's very obvious to me that Mary J. Blige was attractive.
Oh yeah,
But they hid
was
her
still is.
and still is. But they hid her behind the street like what we just talked about with Puff Daddy. And I always wondered if the hook to her as an artist was she'll kinda kick your ass if you, like, mess with her kinda thing, right? But underneath that, I was like, there's, like, this very talented artist and this really, really attractive person. So I was always like the positioning and like, was it to take advantage of where hip hop was? And some of it that I'm sure it was about who she was. She wasn't going to be comfortable in in a certain style yet, but she would,
Right,
soon thereafter, she would
right.
become a little bit more of that style of artist. So that the whole positioning and the marketing and the styling of her, I always found so interesting back then because I was like, am I supposed to think she's attractive or am I supposed to think she's a homie? Like what was the message to me as a young person listening to her music?
I mean, I think the answer to all of that is yes. I mean, like if you look at the video for Real Love, there's different scenes in the video, and in parts of the video, she's wearing like baggies and she's got like the baseball cap backwards, and she's bopping, and she looks tom tomboyish, but
Mhm.
still feminine. And then other parts of the video, like where she's dancing, like she's wearing like tight shorts and somewhat revealing, but not like overtly revealing clothing. Like she's still very much like a pretty girl, but not in the way where she's like super duper showing off her body,
Mhm.
or she's still got kind of like a mystery to her. So I think they're trying to kind of like play all sides, right? Position her as someone who is sexy, but also somebody who can like hang with you and the boys, and as somebody who could punch you in the face. Like there is, kind of trying to mix all of that together and just, reveal like someone who is multi-layered in that respect.
Like, in the comparison that you made with TLC, when TLC came out, I think we were supposed to see them as fun and silly, like, that was kind of
Right,
their gimmick.
right.
I didn't find Mary to be
There
silly
was
in
there
any
was
way. She was
nothing
serious.
there was and still is nothing fun and silly about Mary J. Blige.
Mm, I that she does some songs
Maybe
where
like in her auntiness now, when she like
yes,
imitates her little like dance moves and stuff like
yes,
that,
exactly.
she's now able to make fun of herself a little bit. But there is this thing going around the internet right now. She did a fast food commercial years ago. I think it was Burger King, and she got roasted for it because it's playing in the stereotypes a little bit.
Right, right.
Um, and she has distanced herself so far from that. And I've been seeing on socials now, people are like, come on, Mary, like you took the bag, you made a jingle about some chicken, like it's cool, like lean into it, have a
Yeah,
laugh, like
yeah,
relax, it's fine, it's cool. And she gets very defensive about
yeah,
that.
yeah,
So I don't know that she's fully leaned into her humor,
yeah.
or silliness yet.
Okay. It went number 6 on the Billboard 200, number 1 on the R&B and hip hop chart. You Remind Me was 1 on the R&B chart. Real Love 7 on pop, 1 on R&B. She received no Grammy nominations for this album.
Yeah, I mean, the Grammy Awards weren't messing with like, you had
They
to
didn't they
be,
they didn't know what to do. How
yeah,
how would they know what to do?
yeah, old head R&B was still very much what the Grammy Awards were messing with at that time.
Okay, so now let's reflect. We'll do our Grammys redux here. 1993 Grammys for the best female R&B vocal performance. The nominees: Shaka Khan, "The Woman I Am"; Olita Adams, "Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me"; Whitney Houston, "I Belong to You"; Shanice, "I Love Your Smile"; and Vanessa Williams, "The Comfort Zone."
I mean, eh, what's the 411 is better than any of those records. And not to say any of them are bad, but it's just very indicative of what Grammy people were nominating at that time. Like they didn't necessarily have their ear to the streets. Um, it was still very much in the mold of like classic soul music. I love me some Shaka Khan. Uh, so that to me is like the only thing that would maybe hold a candle.
Yeah,
But
and it won, of
yeah,
course. But
but
the thing that's so interesting about it is even, we talked about they would know what to do with Mary. They didn't even really know what to do with Shanice because that song was giant. Like, I feel like I heard that song everywhere on the radio that year.
I've come around on I Love Your Smile in the last few years, but that period, like 91, 92, like when that song was popular, I hated that goddamn song because it was just everywhere. And it was so, I wonder what Shanice really thinks about that song now, because that song is so cheerful and so
Mhm.
like, it's like just a little too much sugar.
Do you think that they did the remix where she does a little bit of a rap to urbanize it a little bit? Was that
I
the
think
reason for that remix?
probably. I mean, that song is pretty poppy. And shout out to the boys, the Dial My Heart boys, who I think produced that remix.
Love those guys.
Yeah. Um, and also shout out to the boys because I think they're still like like they were on that New Kids Comeback album. Like they just kind of went underground and have been doing stuff behind the scenes. But yeah, I think they remixed that song to give Shanice a little bit of street cred.
And then I don't know if it was the follow-up to that, but there's that Saving Forever for You.
Right, the 90210 song. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
it's literally on Beverly Hills
Yeah, it's on the
90210.
soundtrack. Yeah.
I'm just like, I'm watching 90210, and then Brian Austin Green's in this video, and they're not quite love interests, but there's like some flirtation going on, and
Right.
she locks him in the DJ booth. But
You,
like
you
Shanice
know,
was kind of a big deal in that time
yeah,
frame.
for a brief period of time. Shanice is
Yeah.
actually, we always talk about the On That Note podcast,
Hmm.
which I think Shanice is on a recent episode. But we also got to get, Brian Austin Green had some of the jungle fever back in the day
Oh yeah, and he
because he
said
was,
that he couldn't really even talk about it back then.
yeah.
Like, he did like not that it was him necessarily, but it was the women that he was with didn't want him to talk about it as well.
I mean, the thing that I remember reading recently is that he was dating Tashina Arnold. And if Tashina had come out at the height of Martin's success and been like, "I'm dating this dude," like there would have been some issues. So I get it.
Mama Payne would have been like, "Damn, damn,
Damn.
damn."
Oh God.
That what a couple. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Could you imagine like Tashina Arnold is like the truth too. Like Brian Austin Green's a little too light in the behind, I think, for Tashina Arnold.
I don't know. Maybe Tashina. Maybe Brian Austin. I mean, Brian Austin Green made a rap record.
Yeah,
Maybe
true.
he's a little more thugged out than we thought.
What was it? What One Shop
One
Carnival?
Stop
One Stop
Carnival, whatever the hell it was. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, wild. All right, let's wrap this thing up here. So, I mentioned that there was that track, the opening track where they leave voicemails. On the remix album, which comes out the following year, Martin Lawrence leaves he leaves a voicemail, and he does a couple of things from his, his Martin stuff, and
Yeah.
he tells her, I forget, she needs to I forget, he asks her for something, and then he goes, and last thing, "You can't call nobody," like, as if she's too popular for him now, and, like, he did the whole thing, and I was like, "Wow, this is like 1993 Martin, like,
Peak
live it
90s.
on this album."
Yeah.
And yeah, so Real Love famously samples, Audio 2's Top Billin'. And folks thought maybe a little too hip hop for an R&B song. I think it's awesome.
I mean, Real Love is such a classic. I mean, one of sort of the defining records of the 90s.
And she was hesitant to cover Shaka Khan. Just the idea of how can you cover Shaka Khan, and supposedly Puff Daddy had her lean into it to give it like that hip hop flavor, that street flavor of that song.
And I vaguely
Another good
remember,
thing for Puff Daddy here.
yeah, I vaguely remember an interview with Shaka Khan where she said she hates that remake of the song. Shaka Khan notoriously does not give a F in
Yeah.
interviews. And I think she, her and Mary might not have started on the best of terms, and they've collaborated since. Mary has been very vocal about Shaka Khan as like her vocal idol. But I don't think they necessarily got off on the best foot with that cover. And to be honest with you, Sweet Thing is the one song on that album that I skipped.
Really?
Yep.
Just because you don't think it holds a candle?
Yeah, I think the original is a million times better.
Okay. We talked about this with Lauryn Hill. We did one of our early episodes. Killing Me Softly, the way Lauryn and Wyclef did it, way different, obviously.
Yeah.
You don't see Mary's version as different enough?
I think it's very similar. Like it's kind of karaoke-ish almost. If she had done something really different, then maybe I would have different feelings about it. But it really does just kind of feel like they threw some hard drums behind the original version and were just like, okay, here's a remake.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, let's get to our no skips rating here for What's a 411.
I mean, for me, it's a solid like 8.
I was going 7.5.
Okay.
Myself.
Yeah.
And one of the things we mentioned is with these albums from the late 80s, early 90s, they're not super long. So they cut the fat already on these really good albums. So yeah, it's a strong album.
Yeah. I mean, I really only skipped that one song. And this, I mean, you can program the skits out. And to be perfectly honest with you, I don't ever need to hear Mary J. Blige rapping, even though she's not a terrible rapper. Um, excuse me. That the title track, which is a duet with Grand Poobah from Brand Nubian,
Yep,
um, got a ton of radio play in New
I
York,
remember
like
it.
back in the day. Um, and I don't need to hear Mary J. Blige rhyming. I mean, not to say she's a bad rapper. I actually don't think she is, but singing is her strong point.
What about her version of "Hate It or Love It"?
Oh, that's right. Well, she's singing. She's not really rapping.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I'll take that.
All right. That's it for 1992. Mary J. Blige, What's 411? We'll be back later this week with our top 5, going over our favorite Mary tracks. And I'm actually interested in how close we come on this one.
This one
I,
was really difficult.
I'm gonna guess not that close just because. Um, but yeah, still intrigued because I'm like my top 2 very easy. And 3 through 5 were like, okay, I need to figure this thing out. But my top 2 are very easy, and they're both remixes. Or
Interesting.
actually, no. One is a remix. One is a remix.
Okay. There's one remix on my list.
All right. That is it from here. We'll be back. Check us out, 50for50.net. For Mike, I'm Double G. See you when we see you. Peace
Go Knicks.
out.